Zelda Breath of the Wild, one of the best games ever made, ranked 4th all-time highest scores on Metacritic. But am I the only one without my nostalgia goggles on? After spending around 30 hours in Breath of the Wild on Nintendo Switch, this may be one of my least favorite Zelda games in the series. Now, before people start dropping dislikes and flaying me alive, let me make my points, and I hope even the die-hard Nintendo and Zelda fans, no matter how much they love this game, try to understand my reasonings and we can all agree to disagree. Okay, first up is obviously the new open world structure. This right here may be my biggest problem right out of the gate. Just because a game is open world doesn't make it better than games that are more linear. I believe the quote, "as wide as an ocean but as deep as a puddle," fits perfectly here. We have 120 mostly retworked dungeons that pretty much all feel the same, that alternate from beat this challenge guardian to embarrassingly easy puzzles that tend to get repeated. See, if these were optional, then that's cool, but in a way they aren't, because completing these shrines gives you spirit orbs, which then you use to upgrade your hearts or stamina bar. It takes 4 orbs to increase one of these, so you're looking at a hefty amount of boring shrines to get enough hearts for the Master Sword, which has a requirement of 13 to get. And the main dungeons take about 35 minutes or so, even collecting all the optional chests. They are laughably short and easy compared to previous ones in this series. And if I will once again come across as a broken record, it's because most of the focus was on the open world side of the game. Now, moving on, this little section here is going to be slight spoiler territory, so a little warning. So, this also ties into the open world. Again, like I said, broken record. Nintendo sacrificed story for it. Most of the quote-unquote story is told through optional cutscenes you have to locate by pictures in your Shiekah slab. This is poorly done because nothing in the world feels important or interesting to the player because all of it already happened in the past, 100 years ago. Every important NPC I came across is telling me all these interesting things about how they know me, everything that happened in the past, and I just couldn't care less. The game should have taken place around those memories. Link as a young knight, being sworn in as Zelda's protector, spending time with the 4 champions, and going on a journey to activate the Guardian Beast and defeat Ganon. And by the end, when all that tragedy happens, it would have a more emotional impact on the player. This should have been the halfway point of the game, where you wake up and realize all the people you cared about, all those connections you've made, all the people you've met and fought together with, are dead. Because as it stands, I couldn't care less the 4 NPC champions are dead, because I have absolutely no idea who they are. Now on to another point. Music. Can anybody honestly say that they remember one soundtrack from this game? Nintendo decided to go with the ambiance route, and it just feels wrong for a Zelda game. Outside of the main theme and a few hit or miss town themes, the score of this game is entirely forgettable. Pick any Zelda game in the series, and I bet you can name at least one soundtrack from it. Gerudo Valley from Ocarina of Time, Song of Healing in Majora's Mask, even Skyward Sword with its theme song cleverly played in reverse to give it a new tune. none in Breath of the Wild will be remembered. Now, this next point is more against Nintendo itself than the game. This is about anti-consumerism. All audio language on the cartridge, but can't choose which dub or sub to use. No mute option. Not even a master audio option. Also, why double VSync? Why? In 2017. Why not adaptive VSync like everyone else? If you don't know the difference in a game, if a game can't maintain 30 frames per second, it will drop to 20. That's what double buffer VSync does. Adaptive VSync will start to screen tear if it can't stick to 30 frames per second, but controller response will stay smoother and it won't hard drop to a cap of 20. If you open up the menu in this game, it's also one of the most bare bones menu options I've ever seen. This is straight up lazy. I once again blame the open world because this seems to be where all the time and money went. And the only reason you want to have an open world, if the only reason you want it is to have that check crossed off your list as a selling point, then you've already made a bad open world game straight out of the gate. Now, even after all this ranting on this game and Nintendo, it's still not a bad game. It does have some frame rate issues, and one of the worst English dubs I've ever heard, especially Zelda, which the voice actress used too much falsetto, and it does not fit a character of her age. Every time she spoke, it was such a jarring experience and pulled me out of the game constantly.
Try to remember. You have been asleep for the past 100 years.
But even after all this, the game is still above average. Do I think it deserves a 10 out of 10? Hell no. This is a 7 out of 10 at best as it is today, with frame rate issues, a bare bones, uninteresting story, horrendous voice acting, lack of menu options, and a boring open world. Who knows? Maybe Nintendo will improve it with some of the DLC down the line, and maybe even some patches. But this is Nintendo we're talking about, so don't hold your breath of the wild.